In the heart of a breathtaking kingdom, lived a princess named Amanda. She was known across all lands for her unmatched beauty and gentle spirit. Every warrior in the kingdom dreamed of catching even a glimpse of her smile. Many prayed not just to behold her grace but to win her heart. But what no one knew, not her admirers, not even her closest handmaids, was that Princess Amanda's heart had already crossed borders. Far away, in a neighboring kingdom, it belonged to another, Prince Akin, a revered warrior and noble soul. She dreamed of him every night. And by day, she pleaded with her father King Alu to consider the possibility of their union. "Father," she'd say gently after their evening meals, "if Prince Akam ever comes to ask for my hand, please don't turn him away. He is not just a prince but a good man." But the king was unmoved. "Amanda, you are royalty. It doesn't work that way. Love is not enough. Alliances, bloodlines, duty, these matter." Each evening ended the same: disappointment. Amanda would leave his chamber, her heart aching and her hopes slightly dimmer than the day before. Still, she did not give up. She wrote letter after letter to Akin, pouring her soul onto parchment. She told him of her father's resistance, but encouraged him to be brave. "Come," she wrote, "speak to my father yourself. Let him see the man you are." In his kingdom, Prince Akin read her words in silence, the letters trembling slightly in his warrior's hands. He had never feared battle, but Amanda's letters stirred a fear unlike any sword or arrow could. A fear of losing her. Late one night, alone in his chambers, he read her latest message and made a decision. "I must go," he said to himself. "Why does King Alu keep his daughter from me? I am no commoner, I am a prince." At sunrise he went to his father, requesting permission to travel to the kingdom of Ibom to speak directly with King Alu, to fight, not with weapons, but with honor, for the woman he loved. The journey from Akam's kingdom to Ibom took 2 days by horse, through dense forests and silent valleys. Prince Akin rode with only 2 trusted guards, choosing discretion over grandeur. This wasn't a royal visit, it was a personal mission. As the gates of Ibom came into view, his heart beat fast. Not with fear of rejection, but with the weight of destiny. He was escorted to the palace, where King Alu sat in his great hall, surrounded by advisors. The air was thick with quiet tension. "Your Majesty," Akin began with respectful calm, "I've come not as a prince seeking alliance, but as a man in love with your daughter, Amanda." King Alu's eyes narrowed. "You've crossed kingdoms for a feeling?" "No, I've crossed kingdoms for a future. Princess Amanda is not only beautiful, she is wise, and I believe fate brought us together." The king was silent for a moment. Then he waved his hand, dismissing the court. Only Akin and the king remained. "You must understand something. Akin, my daughter is special. She is not like other maidens. There are things even she does not fully know about herself." King Alu looked at Prince Akin with a solemn face and spoke carefully. "My daughter was born with a secret name, one foretold to expand this kingdom's glory and call kings, warriors, and nobles from across lands to seek her hand. It is a name of power, of mystery, and whoever guesses it correctly shall have her as wife." Akin's heart dropped. This was no ordinary test of love. This was a game of fate. A public trial. "I have no problem with you, Prince Akin," the king continued. "In truth, I would be proud for my daughter to marry a man of your honor. But I must use this moment to raise the name of Ibom across kingdoms." Akin bowed his head, not in defiance, but in worry. What if someone guessed the name before he did? What if Amanda became the prize of another, not the woman he would spend his life with? That night, Amanda, who had heard the entire conversation from the palace hall, stood outside her chambers, trembling. When Akin appeared at her door, her heart lifted, but her eyes burned with tears. "Why?" she whispered bitterly. "Why would my father give me a name I don't even know? A name that could make me marry a man I've never loved?" Akin stepped forward, his voice calm but sure. "It's a test, Amanda. But we will face it. Together. We don't even know what it is," she choked, her voice cracking. "Then we'll find it," he replied gently. "We'll study the history of Ibom, your lineage, and the legend somewhere in there is the key." The next morning, Akin left the palace, riding back to his kingdom with a heavy heart. Amanda watched him go from her window, her hands pressed against the walls. Back in Ibom, King Alu summoned the entire village to the great square. "I bring you good news," he announced. "The princess shall marry, but not in the usual way. Anyone who can correctly guess her secret name shall become her husband and the next ruler of Ibom." Gasps spread through the crowd. Amanda stood at her father's side, eyes pleading. She nearly wept before the people, but the king did not budge. Soon the word spread like wildfire. Men from kingdoms far and wide, including Akin's, began poring over the history of Ibom, desperate to crack the mystery. Prince Akin studied day and night, but the name eluded him. He began to wonder if love alone would be enough. Amanda grew desperate. She returned to her father's chambers one night, her voice trembling. "Please, just tell me. I beg you." King Alu saw the tiredness in her eyes, the way her spirit had begun to fade. He sighed deeply. "The name isn't easy to keep, Amanda. I have hidden it everywhere, in my hat, in pots, in scrolls, and still, it finds a way to whisper, to call. Sometimes I hear it in my dreams, shouting from the darkness." Amanda listened with quiet horror. Still the king said, "I will give it to you. But you must protect it with your life." That night, King Alu handed Amanda a small folded cloth sealed with red wax. Inside was the name. Amanda's hands shook as she opened it. The name glowed faintly, almost alive. It was nothing she could have ever guessed. She tucked it deep into her hair, close to her scalp, and swore to keep it hidden. But that night, she awoke to a soft voice. Her own hair was whispering the name aloud. "No! No! Be silent!" she cried, panicked. She fought to quiet it, her chest rising and falling with fear. Now she understood her father's warning. The name was not only a word, it was a spirit. It wanted to be known. Amanda immediately wrote a letter to Akin, her hands barely steady as she scribbled the words, "Come now, the time has come. The name is not just a name, it is alive. I need you." She sealed it with urgency and sent her fastest rider. Akin had to know. Because soon men would begin speaking names before the king, and all it would take was one lucky guess for Amanda to be lost forever. Prince Akin received Amanda's urgent letter just in time. He saddled his horse that same night, flanked by his most trusted warriors, determined to reach Ibom before the name could fall into the wrong ears. But fate, it seemed, had plans of its own. On the road, they encountered an old woman lying by a thorny path, her leg swollen from a snake bite, her breath weak and uneven. The other riders urged Akin to keep moving, to reach Amanda before it was too late. But Akin couldn't. His conscience wouldn't allow it. With care and urgency, Akin and his warriors treated the woman, built her a shelter, and kept watch over her until her breathing was steady again. 3 days passed before she could even stand. And though his heart ached for Amanda, he stayed. "I cannot win a kingdom and lose my soul," he whispered to himself. Meanwhile, in Ibom, Amanda waited every sunrise and sunset, her heart beating with hope that Akin would come galloping into the palace gates. But each day passed in silence. Fear began to grow in her like weeds. She refused to leave her chambers, clutching tightly to the secret name hidden beneath her waist beads. She barely ate. She barely spoke. She could bear it no more. "I will wait for him by the river," she said softly to herself. "If not at the gates, then maybe there." She left without her maidens, walking through the dusk toward the quiet riverbank, her thoughts spinning. But as she sat on the edge of the water, the wind rose around her in sharp gusts, as if the spirits themselves were shifting. A fierce breeze whipped through her garments, and before she could react, the name flew from her waist beads. It danced on the air like smoke. And it spoke. "My secret name is Sanjali." Amanda gasped, scrambling to catch the strip of cloth, but it was too late. In the shadows of the forest nearby, an old drunkard named Anu, who had been stumbling home from a stream of palm wine, stopped dead in his tracks. His mind, often clouded, became sharp in that moment. The name echoed in his ears. "Sanjali," he whispered. His eyes widened. He ran. He ran like the wind, the name burning in his head, the thought of power lighting his way. He was going to be king. Unaware of what had just unfolded, Amanda returned to the palace, her heart heavy. Akin had still not come. She sat in her room that night, staring out the window, the moonlight casting pale shadows across her face. Had he changed his mind? Had she lost him to the silence? Miles away, Prince Akin mounted his horse once again. The sun rose bright and high above Ibom. The palace grounds bustled with excitement, music, drums, and colors never before seen in one place. Men from distant kingdoms gathered, kings, princes, nobles, warriors, and even commoners all lined up in hopes of winning the hand of Princess Amanda by guessing her secret name. King Alu, seated high on his throne, was glowing. For the first time in his reign, his face was truly filled with joy. His people danced, sang, and celebrated. But beside him sat Amanda, her eyes distant, her face pale from sleepless nights and endless worry. She clenched the edge of her seat with trembling hands, her heart praying that Akin would arrive before it was too late. One by one, the suitors stepped forward, proud and bold. "Ada," one shouted. "Adiz," called another. "Omar," declared a tall warrior in golden beads. But none were correct. The crowd began to murmur. Confusion swelled. What kind of name could it be? Not even the wisest among the 5 kingdoms had guessed it. And then, from the back of the crowd, came a staggering figure. It was Anu, the village drunkard. He stumbled forward, holding a gourd of palm wine in one hand and a crooked smile on his face. Laughter rippled through the crowd until he raised his hand. "The princess's secret name is Sanjali." A hush fell over the gathering. All eyes turned to Amanda. She froze. And then stood, her body shaking, tears pouring freely down her cheeks. The name had been spoken. Her name. And not by Akin. She was no longer his. She was now betrothed to a drunkard. King Alu's smile vanished. His mouth fell open. He gripped his throne as the crowd gasped. The celebration turned to stunned silence. Anu raised his arms in victory. "I am king," he shouted, twirling in drunken delight. The royal guards looked at each other in hesitation. The law was clear. The name had been guessed. The princess must marry him. Amanda turned slowly toward her father, silent tears still streaming, when suddenly the thunder of hooves. From the far road, a horse approached, fast and wild, kicking dust into the air. It was Prince Akin, his clothes soaked in sweat, his face filled with panic and pain. He jumped down from the horse as soon as he arrived, shoving through the stunned crowd, his eyes locked on Amanda. "Amanda," he called, voice cracking. She ran to him, collapsing in his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Akin held her close, his hand against the back of her head. "I'm sorry," she cried. "You were too late. They said his name," he said it. Akin felt his heart break. But he would not let go of her. King Alu stood, looking at the pair with trembling hands. Then, in a sharp moment of silence, he clutched his chest and collapsed. "Father!" Amanda screamed, rushing to his side. Guards called for help, but it was too late. The weight of regret had struck his heart too deeply. In his last breath, he whispered, "Forgive me. Amanda, Please run to Achem with Akin now. News spread like fire, the king was dead. And the drunkard Anu had won the challenge. The elders murmured among themselves. It was a competition. The name was guessed. He must become king. The crowd, once proud and festive, now looked ashamed. And yet, bound by the king's word, the people began chanting Anu's name. In the chaos, Prince Akin leaned in close to Amanda. "We must leave now. Come with me." Without hesitation, Amanda nodded. In one swift motion, Akin lifted her onto his horse. His warriors closed in protectively, forming a wall around them. And before anyone could stop them they fled. Galloping out of Ibom, toward Achem, toward freedom, toward a future of their own making. And behind them, Ibom was left broken. A kingdom that tried to rise in pride, only to fall in shame. But Amanda was no longer just a princess. She was a woman who chose love over legacy. And Akin. He was no longer just a prince. He was her king. Amanda and Akin rode far from Ibom, the wind whispering behind them like the ghosts of all that had been lost. Though fear clung to their hearts for what might come, Amanda held tightly to Akin, her heart full for the first time. He had risked everything, his title, his kingdom, his life, just to be with her. When she learned why he had come late, her love for him only grew deeper. Akin had delayed his journey to save a helpless old woman bitten by a snake. Where others would have rushed to win glory, he stayed back to protect a life. That act of kindness made Amanda realize that no ceremony, no crown, no secret name could ever measure up to the greatness of his heart. Back in Ibom, Anu the drunkard was crowned king, just as he had boasted. But the joy he expected never came. The people didn't cheer, they wept in silence. Their beloved princess was gone, their wise king was dead, and in his place now sat a man who stumbled even when sober. Amanda and Akin were married in Achem, where the sun shone brighter, and the people welcomed their new queen with love and honor. Their reign was peaceful and wise, and under their rule, Achem thrived. They had 2 beautiful children, who carried the strength of their father and the grace of their mother. Back in Ibom, the kingdom fell into sorrow. With Anu as king, the palace grew cold. The people whispered of the days when Amanda graced the palace halls and laughter filled the air. The once mighty Ibom became a shadow of its former glory. Crops failed, disputes rose, and the people began to leave, searching for new homes, many settling in Achem, drawn by tales of Amanda and Akin. As for Anu, he lived his life in silence. The crown that once felt so heavy with pride became a burden he could not carry. Day by day, he drank less, not out of discipline, but because joy had left his bones. He realized that in stealing a name, he had lost a kingdom. Amanda, now queen, often looked to the horizon where Ibom once stood proud. Not in anger, but in memory. Her heart had found peace. She then concluded pride may build a kingdom, but only love can keep it standing. The story teaches that love built on sincerity and sacrifice is far greater than power gained through pride or deceit. In the end, true happiness comes not from fame or titles, but from choosing what is right, even when it's hard.